I nearly did a redo of my first stream where I actually forgot to unmute myself when the stream starts. So luckily I caught myself this time and learning from my actions. So hello and welcome back to another episode of From the Field. And as you can see today, I have a lot of new guests we'll introduce later on. So some of the big news, we just had Summit last week. I think it was Thursday and Friday. Yeah, well, no, it was Wednesday, Thursday. Sorry, I should actually remember because I was actually in Sydney in the studio. Because if you was watching the stream or like anything like that, you would actually seen Trevor and I doing a little presentation about From the Field to try to actually give much more people and an understanding of what we do and the type of content that we present. So, yeah, just to let you know that all of the content for Summit that is available on demand. So all you need to do is go to the AWS Summit ANZ website, sign up or actually log in if you already got an account, and then actually just go through that content yourself when you do have time. Ideally, this is going to be interactive. So if you have any questions or if you want to learn more about anything in particular, just throw a message into into chat, and then we'll definitely throw it out to the panel and actually get a diverse range of opinions on that, and actually, make sure we get down to that answer. So this chat is really this Twitch show is just really going to be about, Summit, going over some of the key themes that was actually touched on Summit, because there's quite a few, episodes. I think there's about 90 different bits of content that actually came out over those 2 days and the different streams that we had. So we're just going to go over there, have a bit of powwow, have an idea of what, New Zealand is doing in those themes, and whether or not, there was any particular content that was actually really enjoyed by the team here. I think the natural place to start is the keynote. So there was the day 1 keynote and day 2 keynote, with both the keynotes really focusing on sustainability, which is really a big topic in today's world, because we want to make sure that there is a world for tomorrow and the future generations, of course. And then it also touched on enterprise applications, and on day 2, a big theme of that keynote was also machine learning. So going from there, it was also really cool to actually hear a New Zealand accent on stage. They really threw me for a loop when I first did it, from Sailesh Manga, which is Chief Digital Officer of Vector, talking about some of the cool things that they're doing. So switching it over to the panel for them to just quickly introduce themselves. I guess we'll go from top left all the way down to bottom right. So Nick, if you want to kick off a quick introduction.
Cool, thanks Casey. Yeah, so I'm Nick Little and I'm a solutions architect working for Consigna. So based here in Christchurch, and yeah, Consigna has offices in Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland and Melbourne. And we're a premier AWS partner.
Great. Kia ora everyone. My name's Andre Tupita Morrison. Work at Lancome Technologies, our development manager. Also an APN ambassador. Really passionate about AWS and keen to talk about the sessions that I enjoyed over the summit.
Josh.
Thanks, Casey. I'm Josh Hobbs. I'm Innovation Ventures Lead for CCL 11, so work in machine learning, computer vision with MJ.
Hi everyone, my name is Matt Johnston. I work for CCL 11, which is part of the Spark Business Group. I lead our AWS team in the South Island as a senior architect.
Nice, that's awesome, and as you nice, we actually have representation from all of the cities. So we got Andre from Auckland, Nick, Josh, and Matt from Christchurch, and myself is Wellington. So we got all the three major cities covered off. Of course, the more important two, Wellington and Christchurch. No offense, Andre. So we should actually really jump into what seemed like the really big overarching theme of the two keynotes, which is sustainability. Through your travels and working with your customers, have you actually seen sustainability become much more prevalent in the mind of our customers?
Yeah, can you jump in there? I think we're seeing in particularly larger enterprise customers who have that large carbon footprint. I think it is becoming more of a concern. It's obviously helpful, the tools that are available in the AWS console you can actually visualize that carbon footprint. I think that was something really cool that I learned about at the summit. But it's definitely becoming that bigger concern. It of course also helps that it pretty directly correlates with consumption cost as well. So it's really quite easy a thing to justify as well to get business buy-in on that. But definitely seeing a lot of that push for sustainability in the cloud.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of government clients are really looking at as well in that sector, because it's something that are really pushed for in terms of their organizational goals. And it was really great to see, especially some of the news about the more reliance on solar power from AWS in Australia and things like that have been talked about. I think those are massive improvements, and I really look forward to seeing the sort of hydropower side of that we'll be able to contribute here in New Zealand with the resources coming here.
Yeah, I think as well for me, one of the other big factors, particularly with AWS, is the silicon innovation that's going on, particularly in machine learning. The different inferentia chips, and can't quite remember the name of the other one, but even at that level, I guess innovating to get that better power performance and do the same workloads but consuming less power by really getting down to that low level of computation. I think that's going to make really big differences, because there's almost there's not really any effort required to switch over to that. So it's a really low effort way to improve the sustainability of those machine learning workloads and other workloads as well with Graviton.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting. It's really good to see the commitment from Amazon as well in terms of adding sustainability to the well-architected pillars as well, and just recognizing the importance of that. And as others have said, is how they can also help to actually lower people's cloud compute costs, which is always advantageous to everybody. And also seeing the likes of, the purchasing power that Amazon has being bigger is really cool in the sustainability region, like being one of the biggest purchasers of renewable power, which is, I think, really awesome to see.
And even going further than that, if we look at, the recent announcements from the government around the primary industries and supporting AWS, supporting us and helping with fish monitoring to ensure that we've got sustainable fisheries around New Zealand is just awesome. And the other work that we're doing with customers on AWS around making sure that the amount of fertilizer that we're putting on soil and farms and pastures is enough to make the grass grow, but not enough that we're getting leach into the waterways. So starting to really think about how we can create sustainable and impactful and meaningful work that can help increase New Zealand's sustainability across the board is fantastic.
Yeah, Josh, sorry, just to jump in there. I think you touched on a really interesting topic there, which is like that making sure you're only using just the right amount of fertilizer that you actually need to do the job, especially as we know recent world events that fertilizers and chemicals are becoming pretty hard to come by. I think that we're seeing fertilizers going 3 to 5 to 6 times the actual going rate that that farmers are used to seeing, which is going to have a very interesting plan. So actually being able to have those solutions and innovation to make sure that you're only using just the amount that you need to make sure that you have that positive that growth. And also we see a lot of startups coming through now that are really targeting that sustainability edge. Like we have startups coming through in the energy sector, which are really focused around how do they enable businesses to meet their green goals, such as if you buy a fleet of 50 EVs, how do you get power to charge those 50 EVs? Because the cables running to the business are only so thick, they can only provide so much power. And if it takes you 2 weeks to charge all your EVs, but you need to use them every single day, well, you can see where the business impact is going to be there. And then so they're working out how can they build out a solution that allows a business to say, okay, we need X amount of solar, we need X amount of batteries to be able to support our daily operation, and to supplement what we are getting from the grid. So that type of innovation as well that has really been supported by the cloud platforms. And Matt, what were you going to say before I jumped in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I see a lot of that growth coming through in New Zealand, especially in the ag tech sector, which is obviously a massive growth. And it's one that's sort of been nervous on cloud, especially in New Zealand with our connectivity challenges of being such a low density nation, and the innovations, both with things such as the local zones and not this is too recent, but relatively recent developments like the Outpost servers to get machine learning and that modern compute and cloud technology onto farms into rural areas. It's really leading, AWS really sort of is helping lead the way in terms of getting that into those sectors here. So that's something we're starting to see a lot of interest in, and I think the sustainability benefits long term of getting that better data. It's data-driven data-driven decision making that is going to lead a lot of those advancements, like the fertilizer, and there's so many other areas for that to grow in.
Yeah. And the low density.
I think like one of the real key things for me is that we've got such a great tool set, even with Forecast, Casey, and being able to leverage that across the agricultural and primary industries would be massive for New Zealand. So it's how do we enable our customers to access that and leverage that to their to enable them to be more sustainable and be able to forecast their requirements, so they're only using what they need and only producing what we need.
And even a 1 or 2% efficiency gain can actually represent for some of our big agri-tech partners and agriculture businesses. They can represent millions of dollars of savings just from being able to a little bit more accurately be confident in what they're ordering and bringing in. Not only just making sure that we aren't exposing all of that carbon into the air as shipping stuff that we don't necessarily need to ship across the ocean to us. And Matt, you mentioned one of the very interesting things in New Zealand is that we are very low density. A lot of our farmers, operate in the hills. It's notoriously hard to get a signal to them. I think one of our customers actually has a free tiered system to actually contact any farmer that might be out in the wild, which is try by SMS, by app notification, and by a pager. So it's quite an interesting set of tools, and there's been a lot of pushback, with the modernization of the mobile networks going to 5G, where 5G doesn't really have that range that is needed for a lot of the more rural communities. So trying to retire that 3G network is actually probably a little bit more tough in New Zealand. And that's quite interesting to hear about the fact that our topological and population makeup is also affecting the technology solutions that we can really put in place going forward, because not everyone lives in the city.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think being in the South Island, we particularly get that because we have a lot of advantages here. Like we have exceedingly cheap power because of the quantity of hydro available and things like that. But we've always struggled more in the connectivity because the latency even through to Sydney, is still more of a challenge in a lot of applications, and I think that's something that's improving dramatically and is going to open up so many more opportunities as we sort of build that out. But the technical architecture always has to mirror the physical, because that's at the end of the day, there's always going to be inputs and outputs to any system we build.
That's very true. Just to actually move on, I think we've touched on sustainability, and is always going to be pretty much a permanent lens to any of the discussion that we have going forward in business and after this chat. So the other big push that I noticed that in Summit was around machine learning, and a lot of the not only the recent services that we've been pushing out, such as Canvas and all of that, but also the enablement around machine learning and trying to like really drive that learning. Josh, I think this is a lot more aimed at you, since this is kind of what you do day in and day out around innovation. The component of Levin. What are your thoughts around, the state of machine learning, where it's going, and what are some of the cool things that you've been working on?
I'm so fortunate to have a team that is so passionate about machine learning, computer vision, and AWS really enables us to embrace that and move forward in some ways. Some of the stuff that we're working on at the moment is like building segmented models to create machine learning without the use of libraries. So being able to actually just go out into the wild and annotate on the fly, which is like huge. And so it's just so good to be able to leverage tool sets that enable us to do that. And some of the things that we're seeing now is, utilization of serverless compute to be able to process information so fast. It's just awesome. And then moving into edge technology. So, our next big step is looking at how we can utilize machine learning on the edge and to be able to package stuff so small but so powerful into a tiny box sitting inside a car. It's just crazy. So that's sort of the area that we're moving into next.
I think there's so many companies at the moment just that it are starting to come to the point of realizing they can afford to do machine learning. And I think that's something, it's a scary thing for a lot of business people, especially that aren't familiar with it. It sounds like it's really expensive and complicated, and they're going to have to hire hundreds of people to put this technology in. And it's something now that is, I think, within the realm of even small business to be developing this technology now. And I think that's really changed it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I absolutely agree. I think the development of the applied machine learning services, where obviously you have SageMaker for training and inferencing with your own models, but just the kind of pre-built services that are becoming more and more available each year, I think it just opens up the power of machine learning without necessarily having to do it yourself. And I think that's, like you say, presents a lot of opportunity for small business who maybe don't have the budget to hire dedicated machine learning resources, but they're still able to maximize, I guess, tap into that potential.
Nick, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, machine learning is always one of those sort of buzzwords that's kind of thrown around by a lot of people, and everybody thinks they need it and they don't, and this is big sort of scary beast, and there's a lot we need to do to kind of demystify a lot of those areas. But yeah, I guess just reiterating to what a lot of the others have said as well, there are a lot of really great AWS services out there, for example, as well. Like Poly and Transcribe, for example, where you can just play around with these things using the AWS free tier. If you want to have some, like text to speech and everything, you can just try it out using the free tier and see how it works. And if it's, something you can use, great. And then if not, no harm done. So I think it's really, really cool just to have that advantage of just cloud computing in general as well, just being able to just, consume things as you need and pay as you go. And if you don't need it, just stop it. It's not like you have to kind of set up this huge, big sort of, array of infrastructure and spend hundreds of thousands on it and commit to things long term. Just give it a go and then just sort of trial and fail fast and go from there. So I think it's really cool to be able to use and do all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I mean, I love the fact that my team can basically take a process which currently consumes 20 hours a day of a customer's time and turn that into something which can happen in minutes. And just the thought of that across an entire year is like, huge, right? It's like so much time that that company is saving, and the value for them is just immense. So, and as you said, MJ, I think a lot of companies sort of look at machine learning and they get a bit scared, or they see it as something that is not attainable for them. So to have a group of people, which I'm lucky enough to work with, that can bring that technology to smaller companies and enable them to use it is just so cool.
Yeah, I think it's customers and technical people too. I think even some developers and architects who don't have that much experience with machine learning maybe don't realize the tools that have been developed on other AWS services. There was a really great session on OpenSearch. I think it was a 400 level kind of deep dive on how to use OpenSearch service, and there were some machine learning integrations around doing nearest neighbor vector searches to do similar image searching, and the use cases for that. They talked about in online retail and finding similar items to this particular item that's being sold, and doing that all with image recognition. I guess even 5 years ago, that's something that you would have had to have a dedicated machine learning team to pull off. But now it's something that you can basically plug and play. And like Nick said, it's all this is accessible within either free tier or on demand, where there's relatively low commitment. You can just plug it in and try it out. So something I'd really encourage technical people as well as customers to look at and see if there's any potential there for their business.
I think Nick sort of covered a really good element in this, in that there's also a lot of I think of AWS services, for example, in 3 sort of tiers. You have the foundation stuff, you have the sort of the more platform and service things, and then you have the real high level services built on those. And some of those that are machine learning driven that you can utilize immediately, like Polly, I think, which I believe Nick mentioned briefly, is a really good one. And I think one of the things that a lot of people sort of missed is the New Zealand voice that came out last year, that can do machine learning driven text to speech with correct error pronunciation. Like, that's a huge thing for, especially if you use that with things like Connect for phone systems, or even externally in other areas, things like that are just can bring such good assets to a business, because it's something that I think all of us have heard a GPS or phone system horrifically butcher Te quite a number of times. And little things like that make a huge difference to customer engagement, and honestly just to our duties to society of having technology that can correctly do that. And there's a lot of those machine learning driven innovations that I think people just aren't even thinking of as ways they can embrace. And that's something that is a really good sort of gateway product for people that are new to it.
Yeah, I just going to jump in quickly because we did have a question a little bit ago, and I'm just coming to the fact that I have waited a little while to answer. So just to put that one on hold, Cloud Guru has asked about AWS Load Balancer versus VMware NSX Load Balancer and Web Application Firewall WAF for VMware Cloud. Do we actually have a VMware Cloud Guru on here? Or do we have the complete wrong audience?
Not me. I love load balancers, but unfortunately, I haven't done much with the VMware.
That is all good. Cloud Guru, if you can just quickly find and add me on LinkedIn, then you can actually just send me a message and ask that question, and then I will make sure I get back to you with a answer after I've actually gone and asked one of our VMware experts. So I'm not across VMware Cloud, mainly because I work in SMB, which is much more smaller businesses, and it doesn't really make economic sense for a lot of them to have a VMware Cloud setup hybrid across 2 platforms. That's much more a mid-enterprise and enterprise where I that's it. So I do apologize for my ignorance on that matter, but yeah, definitely do reach out on LinkedIn to me, and I will make sure I get you that answer, or at least set you up with someone that knows the answer.
I think that sort of does touch on that sort of hybrid cloud is becoming more of a big thing, and especially as people try and bridge their workloads. And I think in New Zealand especially, it's something that gets asked a lot because of our high connectivity. there is so much more interest developing in that area lately, and people wanting to learn more about it. I think it's a really interesting area.
Yeah, I've definitely seen hybrid becoming a little bit more of conditioned for a lot of businesses, especially businesses that have telecommunication requirements such as ISPs and whatnot, just because they kind of need that local presence, just because if the network goes down, and they kind of need to be able to access their network diagnostic tools to correct the internet for everyone else. So yeah, as definitely is becoming more and more, and the outpost capability really allows that to lower that level of technical debt, as mentioned before, because otherwise you actually have two different systems, and then you have to have people train two different systems, how to interact with the two systems, and the more that you have a disunified system, the more it just creates a lot of pain.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. I'll rave for hours on how much I love outposts. So that's probably a talk on its own.
Yeah, that's very true. So, did anyone? I know that everyone doesn't have too much time to watch the whole summit content. Do you have? What was your favorite show, and what did it cover?
I think for me, the global networks on AWS was quite an interesting talk, because I think it's always just such an interesting topic in general. Just how AWS construction manages and maintains their overall kind of global network around everything else, or that like that of the cloud sort of piece that AWS are responsible for under the shared responsibility model. And looking at services like Cloud WAN, for example, something that's kind of been around for a little while. They haven't worked too much with it, and I guess that kind of follows on quite well to what we were sort of talking about before around some of those hybrid networks and things, for example, as well. And having that single sort of pane of glass kind of view where you can manage and maintain all of your hybrid networks and AWS networks sort of in one place as well, and where you can connect to SaaS services as well, like for example using Private Link. Is quite a good way to do it. So that was quite an interesting one to sort of learn about how that, and I think for me, one of the things you quite often lose during those sort of hybrid approaches and things is you lose a lot of that visibility. So I think having that kind of single pane of glass where you can view everything in a network topology and a logical sort of view is quite cool, and it's definitely something that's quite keen to look into a bit more.
I guess one. Oh, sorry. You go ahead. You go ahead.
No, you go. You're next in order.
Sure. I guess for me, there was it was less technical, but there was a session run by Chris Buckley, 10 unconventional tips for cloud architects. I actually really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot of tips in there that some that I'd heard, some that I hadn't heard, but it's a really great resource for, I think, architects that have been working on with AWS for maybe 1 or 2 years and are really looking to get into that senior architecture level. It was really great to see those best practices and optimizations just being shared with a wider audience. There was one particular one around don't let muscle memory or avoid muscle memory when you're selecting AWS services. I think particularly when you're at that sort of 2 to 3 year mark, it's something that is easy to fall into. But one of the big themes that I noticed at the summit was just all about rapid innovation. That's generally a theme at most of these AWS conferences. There's just so many new services and significant features being pushed out that it's really important to stay on that bleeding edge. And I think it was a just really great resource that I've already passed on to some other architects as well. So really enjoyed that one.
My favorite was there was I'm trying to remember the lady that hosted its names. I am terrible with names, but it was on microservices and resiliency, particularly around fault tolerance patterns and things like that. And that's something that I find really, really fascinating, because we're seeing a lot of demand in the application modernization space at the moment, and I think that's only going to grow with the ability to do full cloud native services in New Zealand once we have the Auckland regions. And that's an area that I'm really trying to get more skill up, and it's great seeing the level of options available. And also, as sort of Andre has said there, the services that a lot of the lesser used services, like step functions, is one of those ones I find a lot of architects forget about. And it's such a cool service that is so powerful, and does so many things that the name doesn't cover. That I think that's a really sort of good example of like finding out these tools that developers and architects can be using. And really, I think both of them need to be on top of that for these modern design patterns, and how much they've evolved even since microservices 2 years ago. The way you're building them in the cloud now is just different again, and it's just constantly evolving. And it's great to see some good talks on the modern techniques.
Yeah, I actually really agree. I really like that session as well. Just wanted to quickly say that I think that's one of the biggest benefits I get from these summits and these sessions is those level 400 talks where they go really into detail, and it's just really great content, and it's shareable and something that you can reference for a long time after the fact as well. So I really liked that one.
Yeah, I think that it's a really good balance when you get that really high level discussion of these sorts of heavily technical topics, and especially while it is obviously it's a 400 level advanced thing, they're still accessible. Like that's the sort of talk I could throw one of our juniors or graduates or even interns into, and I think they would get as much benefit out of it as one of our senior or principal architects.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even one thing I really liked that felt very practical in that session was towards the end talking about fault injection simulator. I think that's a really great tool that's available on AWS. And one of the things that was mentioned is some of the native integrations with AWS services means you don't have to install an agent or something like that, like you would with a third-party tool. And that was just a great practical, almost tutorial really on the benefits that you can get from that tool. I guess microservices architecture is great and big supporter of it, and I think that it hugely improves that development process. But it does come with added complexity, which introduces risks, and I think that fault injection simulator is something that it's a great asset for when you're building those microservices architecture, because it allows you to mitigate those risks and those concerns that you might have around this complex architecture tripping up at any one point. So that was something I really got out of that session.
Sounds like we need to pass feedback back to AW. That was a really good session.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, across the keynotes, the key piece was enablement. So if you look at Lisa and some of the other ones that talking about how AWS is enabling them to enable their teams to be able to perform better and get results. And it leads back to that whole sustainability piece, right? Casey, it's like, how can we enable everyone to be better and achieve as much as we can using as little resources we can. So, and I think we really embrace that, MJ, with using serverless technology. So as and when we need it, we spin it up and we shut it down.
I think it's that key thing of IT, like the classic view. I remember this is how it was taught back in business classes in uni, but an IT department operating as a force multiplier for the business. And I really see that same thing with platforms like AWS being a force multiplier to your IT department, and that sort of exponential benefit you can get across the rest of the company when utilized properly. I think that is the story of that enablement.
Nice. So it seems like everyone did actually have some type of favorite summit topic, so that's always good. I think mine, like I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the agritech startups. So actually mine was the agritech. I can't actually remember the name of the session anymore because that'd be way too convenient. It was covering off like the innovations that's happening in the agritech side of things, where they embrace machine learning. We actually do have quite a few really, really interesting startups that are happening. Located out in Waikato, and I also think Tauranga and that area. So close to close to the big cities, but not quite. Will make sense because that's where all of their target customers are. And they're doing some really interesting things with computer vision, such as detecting disease early, doing rough counts of the size and shape and how much apples are in the container. So all you have to do is just take a simple photo. It will tell you what the size are, how ripe they are, how many apples are inside the container. It's just really like just shortening the entire process. So that I found was really, really quite interesting because I do work with a few, or have worked with a few of those customers in the past. It's always interesting to see how they tackle things. And a lot of that was quite interesting because I have talked to a lot of customers where a lot of their proof of concepts for their much more custom machine learning models was actually done on the high level systems, such as Rekognition, for example, where they've just did their proof of concept there, said, yes, this is possible, it makes sense. Then they actually dived in and, got the data scientists to spend all of that time, labeling, making sure all the data was in line to get that custom model, what they actually really need to deliver that the next level value. And yeah, so it's quite interesting, especially the disease one, where they attach cameras to a tractor as it goes up and down the vineyards or the orchard, and then as it's going past doing its normal day-to-day operations, it will actually just take pictures based on the GPS location of the tractor as well, and knows where it is, and it goes, oh, actually no, that vine over there or that tree has a disease, or it looks like it has early stage of disease, and then it will actually automatically log a job to one of the caretakers to actually go out there and do a manual inspection. So it's quite interesting on that front. So I guess
that's a cool thing of using that technology to really make those people more productive, because you have those specialist people that are much better using their time fixing a problem than wandering up and down a vineyard all day in case there might be a problem. And I think that's a really cool use of that sort of technology.
Yeah, and I imagine as well that the algorithms that are detecting that disease are probably better than humans as well. So you're also dropping that rate of human error.
And that rate of fatigue. And probably much easier to keep staff if they don't have to spend all day standing outside doing nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the human component is quite interesting, as there's been lots of studies that show the attention span and the ability for humans in particular to make informed and accurate decisions based on the time of day. So generally in the morning is when you're most focused and you can actually make the best decisions. And then as it gets closer to lunch, it rapidly deteriorates in terms of your ability to process and intake information. And then after lunch, there's a small rebound, and then it plummets off into the face of the earth quickly after that. It's also why there's a lot of consideration about when you appear in court, and also the relative punishment to it, which is very, very interesting. So it's not just as a business, you have to take into that the human element, and also how can technology help alleviate that human component of it, and as MJ was saying, focus their time much more effectively on the task that gets that most value out of that person. So they can actually continuously make sure they're fixing the issues rather than going out and looking to see if there might be an issue someplace.
I think that's a common thing where people talk about machine learning taking jobs, whereas in fact most of the sort of like human labor it reduces is that high focus but really boring work, which is both stressful and unproductive. And I think it focuses and creates more of that in the more productive, useful, and actually interesting spaces. And I think that's a really important perspective when looking at that. Sorry to interrupt, Casey.
That's so good. I actually would say that the perfect example of it is any developer. When they're actually coding, they work at an amazing speed, and then as soon as they have to do a test, for some reason, they nosedive off a cliff in terms of their performance. So it's just like that level of investment and engagement they have with the task as well also really dictates how quickly something gets done. Andre, you was about to say something?
Yeah, just I guess a bit of a tangent, but I think a related thing there about these jobs being I guess, taken away by machine learning. The flip side of that is there's so much more demand now for digital, tech jobs. I think we all know how difficult the market is at the moment. And one thing that was touched on in that, I think that first keynote was around the need for training. And I think that's just a really interesting topic that I'm very keen on. It's a difficult challenge to ramp up the number of resources that we're going to need in the next 5 and 10 years to facilitate all of this rapid innovation that we're seeing in the technology space. And I think it's really great to see the training programs that are being made available. Obviously I'd like to see it going faster, but in particular, there was the She Builds AWS program for getting more women into the tech space. And I thought that was a really great thing to call out early on in that keynote. I mean, just have to look around at the 5 of us to see that this is a bit of a male-dominated industry. And the way I see it, the more women that we can get into tech, then the more people we can get into seats and creating leverage and creating great software and solutions. And it's just, I think, a big area of investment that I'm personally quite invested in and would like to see growing even more.
I think that growth of the skill sets and the teams is such a challenging area because, as you said, like the forecasts, I think I can probably speak to pretty much every AWS partner when I can say we're all seeing such a orders of magnitude increase in work demand, and meeting that is a real challenge, and it's something that's the same as our customers are finding that within their own businesses they're seeing the same thing, which is why there's more work coming our ways as well. And I think building that up and building that pathway into our industry is so huge in both the technical and I don't want to say non-technical because they're not, but the technical adjacent support roles, both of them, there is so much room there for growth. It is fantastic. Obviously, probably anyone watching this stream has already been sold on IT, but it's always the way.
No, I absolutely agree with the sentiment.
Yeah, and I think we're so lucky to have partners that support us in bringing people into our industry as well. So creating programs that enable us to, as you said, as machine learning or other technologies take over, there are people that are going to be displaced from their current roles. And some of the work that AWS is about, enabling people to get back into the workforce in a different career and in a different role is just so awesome. And we're so stoked to be able to have, support Restart and help those people change direction and find careers in an industry that they probably never considered when they were 10 or 20. So it's just awesome.
Yep, and that's actually a really good segue into the training component of a stream, which I actually do really want to make sure we cover off. So if I just bring my screen up to this, which is really the training and certification side of things, because as we mentioned before, everyone is looking to, for people with new skills to improve their skills, and especially just to make people a lot more relevant in today's world, especially as it is heading more towards the cloud type paradigm and these first order services. And at the top, we actually have the AWS Skill Builder, which if you just scan that QR code, will take you to a webpage which is completely free, and it will take you through a journey to go from cloud practitioner, which is really the cloud foundationals, all the way through to a more advanced cloud concepts such as serverless, cost optimization, etc. Or if you're actually really interested in a particular facet of IT, such as machine learning, it will build. There are pathways to enable you to get to that competency in the cloud for machine learning using SageMaker, etc. Or if you're just wanting to do sysops, such as managing your systems and your operations side of things, there is also a pathway just for that. Same with developers and DevOps, etc. There is massive demand. Pretty much every single business, every single partner I talk to is screaming out for AWS qualified staff. So it's definitely a way to pivot into. We have a couple of programs that are available as well. So if you don't currently work in IT, but you want to go into it, we have the Restart program, which is being run out of Christchurch, Auckland, and Palmerston North from memory. I believe the first round of that had just wrapped up a few months ago, and we've seen good success for that. There's also She Dares and She Builds, and I think there's one other woman-focused program out there that AWS is running. You can just quickly do the old Google for the She Dares or She Builds programs, and they will pop up. Down the left side, if you are working in more of an enterprise situation, then there's the instructor-led side of things, which because it's very hard, you can tell your team to take, a week out of their, not a week, sorry, a day out of their week every month for whatever to do their training, but it very rarely happens because everyone's so focused on their job and meeting the deadline, and it doesn't happen. So instructor-led is a really good way to force that, to get everyone in the room and sit them down. They have to learn. The instructor-led courses are pretty amazing. I did one before I actually joined AWS, and it was probably one of the best classroom experiences I've had. And I've been to a few of these. Most of them I just ended up doodling on a pad and not doing anything. Or learning anything. So that was definitely an upside. And everyone on here, I am pretty sure Consigna, Lancome, Levin, and CC are all hiring cloud personnel. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, we definitely are. We're hiring Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, remote, pretty much anything you could want. Intermediate, seniors, all specialties, and some juniors, depending on skill sets. So.
Andre?
Yeah, same case here. I think it's the same for all of us, but really open roles for us are cloud engineers and architects, but also software developers. We're a web development shop, so looking for graduates and seniors there too. If anyone happens to be watching, interested in a role like that, you can apply. Lancome Technology.
Yep. And Nick?
Cool. Yep. Same story here. So you're always on the lookout for great people. Obviously, ideally, people with an AWS background or experience, but of course, we're really just looking for the right people. So the people who have the right aptitude and the willingness to get started and to learn and get stuck into all the challenges that we've got here. So yeah, it'll be Consigna, and I think we have some of those roles advertised now. Or get in touch with me, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah. So there you have it. I'm not lying or leading you astray. These are just a few of the partners that we have, and all of the other partners that I've talked to are definitely hiring as well. So if you are looking to retool or start a new career, then I would highly suggest that the Skill Builder is a way to start. And also at the bottom there, you have a 50% off discount voucher. This works for Australia and New Zealand. So if you are outside those countries, unfortunately, it will not work for you. But that's 50% off if you actually do want to get your associate solution architecture, pro solution architecture, or more specialized ones such as DevOps or machine learning or analytics, etc. So that's a really good way to provide confidence to anyone that is looking to hire you, to say, hey, look, I do have certification. I know what I'm talking about. And I think for 50% off, they're not actually too expensive. They're about $100 or so. I'm going to have to take one at the end of the year because I need to refresh my certifications. So I'll be able to tell you then. Has anyone done a certification recently? Do you know what the rough prices are?
I think that's about right what you said. They're pretty affordable, and especially often if you're already working in IT, even if it's not in cloud, bug your boss and ask them to pay a lot, Will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. If you're working, never pay for something unless they force you to. That's always harassing. Yeah, because really, as the automation or what we've been talking about, these streamlining of processes kick in, the more you can, we can make sure that the skill sets are all up to date, and there is, as those more higher value roles come in, that you're well truly placed to actually be, have the skill sets, be in the right place, and then make sure that you're successful going forward. There's also on the far right, that you can't see because it's a different screen. This one here, you have to webinar and exam readiness, which is really, really good if you want to cover that off. So if you don't worry about taking a picture of this, the VOD or video on demand of this will be up directly after the stream. So you can actually just go to this timestamp within the video, and then you can actually just take a screenshot or scan of the QR codes there. So I'm going to quickly go from there, go back to here. Is there any last questions that anyone has, or any closing remarks that any of you, the panel, want to make?
Just to finish up on my end, I think that the real show of this is how big and growing our industries are in New Zealand, and I think that shows by how many amazing partners there are throughout the ANZ space as well. Obviously, I'll get in trouble for calling all the other partners amazing too, but it's the way it goes. I think our industry here across the spectrum is really is really awesome, and there is so many cool projects around, and both the stuff that gets shown off in these summits. There was too many cool little customer snippets out of those keynotes to mention, but just how good this industry is growing, and how the cool technology we get to play with now. A lot of us are geeks at heart, and I think that's why we're doing this, because it is just a really fun area with so many cool things, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. And thank you for inviting me along today, Casey, to chat about these cool advancements.
I think just from me, if there's anyone out there watching who does want to upskill on AWS, whether you're looking to retool like Casey mentioned, or if you're already experienced and looking to just get a deeper dive and you haven't participated in something like the summit before, just really encourage you to go online, register, and get access to all the VODs. Everything's broken down by technical tracks, so architect and developer, infosec. There's tracks for everyone, and I think really making use of that level system. There's 100 to 400, just in the sort of level of how deep that it goes into those services. It's a really great way to either get a start or just increase your knowledge. So we'd encourage everyone to go and take a look if they haven't done that already. And yeah, thanks Casey as well for the invite. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. I mean, I feel privileged every day to be able to work with so many amazing people in such an amazing field with such cool technology, and to be able to take that out to New Zealand and share what we can do. And it's just so cool to have partners like AWS that support us in that. So thanks for inviting us along today. It's been really cool.
Cool. Yeah, I guess for me, it's just to sort of reiterate kind of what we've already discussed as well. And I think it's just particularly exciting to seeing, as others have said, just how much opportunity there is in the New Zealand market, particularly at the moment in the AWS cloud space, for example, as well. And just, it's really cool to see. I think everybody gets to kind of reap the benefits and rewards of that as well. So the more people that start getting onto AWS, we can benefit from those, economies of scale. Those things actually become cheaper, and those costs gets passed along to the consumers as well. And then we're able to do things more efficiently, which makes it more sustainable as well. So it's really a win all round, and it's really exciting to see. And it's just totally limitless potential. So it's just, infinite what you can actually get done, which is really cool, I think, and really exciting. And as others have said around, wanting to get into AWS, one of the other good things you can do as well, if you're particularly more interested in a technical sort of perspective as well, is just doing a few things like, buying yourself a domain name and setting it up and registering it in Route 53, have a bit of a play with it, get yourself a little S3 static website blog up and running. Just get used to using some of those services and things as well, and looking at integrating to other services, and, and at quite a basic level, integrating into G Suite for single sign-on so you can get in there more easily. All of those cool things, good things to just play around with, and quite useful to, have up your sleeve as well. And yeah, thanks for the invite, Casey. It's been really good to get along and have a chat to you all.
Yeah, definitely getting your hands on is one of the best ways to learn. And yeah, I do appreciate all of you taking your time out of your day to come on here and share knowledge and have a little bit of a chat. It's been awesome. I absolutely love working with you all. And yeah, adding to Josh's points, they are really, really they are working some really interesting stuff in terms of their machine learning capabilities that I've been across. Obviously, I can't dive into it, but yeah, and same with Consigna, and I know Lamecomet also. They actually did work for one of the old companies I worked for before AWS. So yeah, definitely doing some really interesting stuff there. And just a reminder that every single account in AWS does technically have an account manager, ISR, and SA. So the ISR and account manager is the the like sales side of it, and SA was my role, which is the technical enablement side of things. So yeah, definitely do reach out if you have any questions, like just or use the contact us form that is available on the AWS page. And yeah, so that is everything. I'm gonna wrap it up there. Thank you very much for everyone that stopped by and actually watched the stream. Hope you have a awesome Friday and a great weekend. And yeah, I'll see you next week when we have Chris Kuma, which is a AWS architect, presenting on cost optimization and basic free tier websites, and how to do that for a whole demo. So cool. And let's see if
Thank you.
cool. See ya. Mate wa.